another English Solutions for Business and Life video. Today, we will be looking at Unit 8 in the Global Pre-Intermediate book, and we will be focusing on the grammar section. We will be focusing on 3 points: the passive voice, how it's used, and when do we use it, and the first and second conditionals. So let's begin. Let's look at the passive voice. We could use the passive voice or the active voice. The active voice would focus on the agent, the person or thing who does the action. We're focusing on that. But the passive voice is different. Why is it different? Because with the passive voice, we focus on the action rather than on the person who does the action. Or we could use the passive voice when we do not know who does the action or what does the action, or when that is not important. Now, let's first look at how it's done, how we use the passive voice, and how we conjugate the passive voice. It's different to conjugate it in the present than in the past, but mainly because the verb to be, the auxiliary verb for the passive voice, is conjugated differently in the past than in the present. But the thing or the conjugation is pretty much the same. We would use the verb to be and then add a past participle. For example, in the present we could say, I am shocked, or you are fired. They are both present passive sentences because we use the passive or the verb to be as an auxiliary, and we use the past participle for the verbs shock and fire. In this case, they are both verbs. I am shocked, you are fired. Now, in the past, we would just change the form of the verb to be. For example, in the past, I was shocked, or you were fired. Now, remember, we use the active voice to focus on the agent, but the passive voice to focus on the action. If we want to say who did the action, we can use by and then add the agent. So like this. So it would be the form of the verb to be either in the present or in the past, the past participle of the verb we're using, followed by, and then the agent. For example, the building was designed by a famous architect. The building, here the subject would be the building. Was designed would be the verb that we are focusing on, the action. By a famous architect would be the agent, the person who did the action. We use the passive voice when we do not know who did the action, or when it's not important. Remember that. For example, my bag was stolen. That would be a sentence in the passive voice. Stolen is the past participle for the verb to steal, and we are using was as the auxiliary verb, the verb to be. Now, in this case, we do not know who stole the bag. We just know that it disappeared, it was stolen. Now let's start looking at the first conditional. When do we use the first conditional? We use the first conditional to talk about a possible future situation. Now there are a few rules. For example, we use the present simple in the if clause. We also use will, can, or might, and the verb in the main clause. And lastly, The if clause can be either the first or the second clause in the sentence. They're both correct. If it is bad weather, I'll watch TV. If you come, I might come. If he climbs a tree, he can fall. Those three are first conditional sentences. Now, notice that there is a difference in the meaning with the usage of will, might, and can. When we use will, the speaker thinks it's likely that the situation will happen. There's a high chance, or so the speaker thinks. So let's put like a certain percentage. There could be a 90% chance that the situation happens. Now, for might, we're not sure whether the situation will happen. So, we do not have enough information for that, to know certainly whether the situation will happen. So we could say that we have a 30% chance of the situation happening. This just to help you visualize the chance of the situation happening. It doesn't mean that it has to be specifically 90% or 30% probability. Now, for can, when we use can, the speaker is not sure whether the action will happen or not. Both things could happen. We're just not sure whether it could happen or not. Okay, so that was the first conditional form. Now remember that we can move the if clause in the sentence. It could be the first or the second clause in the sentence. In this example, if he climbs the tree, if he climbs the tree, he can fall. We could also change it like this. He can fall if he climbs the tree. Just remember to add the comma when the if clause is the first one. When it's the second one, we don't need the comma. He can fall if he climbs the tree. So we can change it around. Now, that's the first conditional. Let's go on to the second conditional and see when we can use it and how to use it. We use the second conditional to talk about an unreal future situation. The action or the situation is unlikely or almost impossible to happen. Now, that's how we use it. There are also a few rules for this one. The first rule being that we use the past simple for the if clause. We do not use the present simple. And we also use would and could for the main clause. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's look at some examples. If I didn't have to work, I'd go to the beach today. If I had lots of money, I could travel around the world. Now, in this case, if I didn't have to work, I'd go to the beach today, but I have to work, so I won't go to the beach. That's an unreal future situation. It's unlikely that I won't have to work today, and it's even less unlikely that for me to go to the beach today. If I had lots of money, which is an unreal future situation, and it's almost impossible or unlikely to have lots of money right now, I could travel around the world. Now, that's the second conditional. We sometimes say, if I were, instead of if I was. Now, which one do you think is correct? Well, both of these are correct. We normally use if I were or where for expressions like if I were you when giving somebody advice. So, if you hear both of these words or both of these forms, you can be sure that both of them are correct. Okay, so that's it for the second conditional, and also for the grammar section of this unit. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any more questions, make sure you ask your teacher about this. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.